Merci beaucoup. Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning to everyone joining us from Canada. I'll be providing an update on my visit to Ukraine, and then I'll be happy to take some questions. It's after 6:30 p.m. here in Kyiv, and we've had an incredibly meaningful day. We started off by visiting an exhibit of destroyed Russian tanks in St. Michael's Square in Kyiv. There we saw firsthand evidence of the success that Ukraine's armed forces are having in pushing back against Russia's brutal invasion. Grâce principalement à leur propre bravoure et à leur courage, mais aussi à l'aide militaire fournie par le Canada et nos alliés, l'Ukraine a repris d'importantes portions de territoire et continue de défendre sa souveraineté. Accompagné de sous-ministre de la Défense de l'Ukraine, j'ai ensuite déposé des fleurs au mur de souvenirs à Kyiv en hommage aux héros ukrainiens tombés au combat. This morning, I also visited Irpin, a suburb of Kyiv that Russia occupied in the initial months of this war, and I saw evidence of unspeakable horrors. I saw civilian homes reduced to rubble. I saw a hole in the ground where a large civilian building once stood, and I saw what was once a parking lot but is now filled by stacks of destroyed and burnt out cars that once belonged to ordinary families. Russia's indiscriminate killing of innocent civilians can only be described as callous and barbaric, and Canada condemns these acts in the strongest possible terms. Russia cannot and will not escape accountability for its crimes. This afternoon, I met with Defense Minister Oleksiy Reznikov for a lengthy and productive meeting at which we discussed the state of this conflict, how Canada can continue to be most helpful. Alongside Minister Reznikov, I announced that Canada will donate 200 Rochelle Senator armored personnel carriers valued at over $90 million. This is part of the over $1 billion in military assistance that Canada has committed since February 2022 and over $5 billion that we have committed in combined military, financial, humanitarian, and other aid. I want all Canadians to know that, as Minister Reznikov told me today, Ukraine is highly grateful for Canada's defense contributions to Ukraine, including heavy artillery, a NASAMS air defense system, the armored vehicles that I announced today as well. And when I travel across Canada, I see Ukrainian flags on cafes, homes, and cars. And I told Minister Reznikov that our nation stands in unwavering solidarity with his. J'ai rencontré des membres des forces armées ukrainiennes formées par le Canada dans le cadre de l'opération Unifier, notre mission de formation qui a permis de transmettre des compétences militaires à plus de 35 000 soldats ukrainiens et qui se poursuit aujourd'hui au Royaume-Uni et en Pologne. And just a few moments ago, I visited a hospital and met with injured Ukrainian heroes who have put everything on the line to defend their nation. Comme je l'ai dit, la visite aujourd'hui a été à la fois déchirante et inspirante. L'impact dévastateur des crimes de la Russie est évident pour quiconque visite l'Ukraine. Mais la résilience et le courage du peuple ukrainien sont évidents aussi. L'Ukraine ne souhaite rien d'autre que de vivre en paix, en sécurité et en liberté, les valeurs que nous partageons en tant que Canadiens. I'll just conclude by sincerely thanking everyone who has been part of Canada's efforts to stand by our Ukrainian friends. I thank every member of the Canadian Armed Forces who has trained Ukrainian troops through Operation Unifier. I thank our ambassador, Larissa Galatza, Canada's tireless ambassador to Ukraine, and the embassy staff here in Kyiv. And I thank Canadians, especially our Canadian diaspora, who have raised money, collected winter clothing, and opened their homes to new Ukrainian arrivals in Canada. Notre engagement envers l'Ukraine est au cœur des intérêts nationaux du Canada. And as Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has said, There is a price to helping Ukraine, which includes the weapons and the vehicles and the ammunition that we have provided. But the cost of doing nothing is far greater. What happens here in Ukraine will determine the kind of world in which our children grow up, and our assistance to this brave nation will continue, and Ukraine will win. Thank you, and I'm now happy to take your questions.
OK, donc on commence la période de questions. Comme j'ai dit au début, on a jusqu'à l'équipe de Mme Anand nous a dit qu'on a jusqu'à 12:07. If there is more flexibility in time, that would be much appreciated because we have many reporters that have questions to ask. So please, Minister, if you can try to go directly to the question, that would help us to maximize our time. Alors, la première question, on va y aller en français avec Denis Babin de Radio-Canada. La parole est à vous. Oui, Denis Babin, est-ce que tu arrives à parler parce qu'on n'entend pas ici? OK, alors je vais passer, on va y revenir plus tard si ça fonctionne du côté de Denis Babin de Radio-Canada. En attendant, so we'll go to Stephen Chase from Globe and Mail. You can go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, Minister. I wanted to ask you about, just to clarify, because there's been some confusion, what is it Canada will do and won't do for a Canadian citizen killed fighting in Ukraine? What kind of efforts will you take for the body, for the repatriation of the body, et cetera? Because it's unclear.
So first and foremost, I'd like to extend my condolences to the family of the fallen Canadian and any fallen Canadian soldier involved in this terrible and horrific war. In terms of the particular assistance that Canada will provide, that is run out of Global Affairs Canada, and it differs on a case-by-case basis depending on the individual. With regards to the most recent tragic death, that family is dealing directly with Global Affairs.
And so is it expected, I mean, this is supposed to be a fight to defend democratic values, as the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister are always saying. Is it to be expected if the family so chooses that Canada will repatriate the body for the family to Canada? And I'm just not clear what is it will do. You're in a country that's at war. Canadians are fighting there too. And we want to understand what is it Canada will do if a Canadian dies there in terms of repatriating the body, et cetera.
Thanks, Steve. Yes, Global Affairs Canada offers assistance to families in this situation, and the assistance is particular to the requests of the family. And given that this is not my department, I will leave it there. Thank you.
OK, next in line. Prochaine question. On a Marie Chabot-Johnson de Radio-Canada qui va poser les questions que Denis Babin avait ou peut-être d'autres questions. Alors, Marie, ça devrait fonctionner pour toi. Tu peux y aller.
Allô? Donc, bonjour, je parle le porte-voix de M. Babin. Donc, Madame Anand, votre bureau dit vouloir collaborer à l'augmentation de la production afin de répondre aux besoins de l'Ukraine. Mais concrètement, comment comptez-vous vous y prendre pour remédier à la situation? Peut-être nous donner l'exemple d'un geste que vous voulez poser par rapport à ça. Voilà.
Oui, merci pour la question. Au cours de la dernière année, le Canada s'est engagé à fournir à l'Ukraine une aide militaire complète, totalisant bien plus d'1 milliard de dollars et plus de 5 milliards de dollars en aide économique, humanitaire et militaire combinée. Donc, nous allons continuer de fournir l'aide militaire à l'Ukraine. Ça, c'est la raison que je suis ici en Ukraine aujourd'hui pour annoncer 200 véhicules blindés pour les forces armées ukrainiennes. Et nous continuons de faire le travail pour ce pays, pour la souveraineté et aussi pour l'ordre international fondé sur les règles.
Question suivie, Marie?
Oui, donc peut-être en deuxième question, c'est parallèlement aux besoins de l'Ukraine, là, les forces armées canadiennes disent elles-mêmes qu'elles ont été négligées par le gouvernement fédéral au fil des ans. On calcule qu'environ 15 milliards de dollars du budget de la défense n'ont pas été dépensés depuis l'arrivée au pouvoir du Parti libéral. Alors, comment on fait pour rectifier le tir, pour s'assurer de dépenser qu'est-ce qu'on donne et pouvoir permettre aux forces armées canadiennes de bien être équipées elles aussi?
Merci beaucoup. Premièrement, nous avons une politique, notre politique depuis 2017. Ça veut dire que nous continuons d'investir dans les forces armées canadiennes et ces investissements vont continuer d'augmenter par 70% entre 2017 et 2026. Ça, c'est clair. Et aussi, la semaine passée, j'ai annoncé que nous allons investir en les avions de chasse F-35, 88 en fait, pour les forces armées canadiennes. Donc, nous allons continuer d'investir dans nos forces armées canadiennes en même temps de fournir l'appui nécessaire pour l'Ukraine de gagner cette guerre importante. Ça, c'est une guerre pour la démocratie en Ukraine, mais aussi pour notre liberté aussi. Parce que depuis la Deuxième Guerre mondiale, nous avons vu le pays. Mais ça, ce n'est pas le cas maintenant depuis le 24 février l'année dernière. Donc, nous devons continuer d'appuyer l'Ukraine et aussi d'être solidaires avec nos alliés et l'OTAN dans cette guerre importante. Merci.
Next in line, we have Liberty from the Canadian Press. You can go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Minister. Wanted to ask about the tanks. You said earlier today that Canada, well, the Prime Minister said the other day that Canada is not there yet. Earlier today, you didn't commit one way or the other. But I did want to ask, does Canada want Germany to allow the re-export of Leopard 2s?
Thanks for the question, Lee. This is certainly top of mind at the current time. And as you may know, the Defense Contact Group is gathering in Germany on Friday, and this will be on the list of items to discuss. And so I will say that Canada continues to examine the options for us to continue to support Ukraine. And the way in which that support is devised is by conversations directly with Minister Resnikov, as well as with our allies and partners, and that will occur on Friday. Thank you.
And as a follow-up, I'd like to ask about a different topic. Your government has repeatedly refused to say why Canada is not part of AUKUS. You say Canada has other alliances such as Five Eyes, but CADSI and the head of CJOC say this isn't the same, that those do not amount to the same type of arrangements. Why won't you tell Canadians why Canada is not part of AUKUS?
Well, thanks for that question. Also, Lee, as I've been the defense minister for just over a year now, I will say that our bilateral relationships with each and every member of AUKUS are extremely strong, as well as our relationships around the multilateral alliances of which we are a part, NATO, NORAD, and Five Eyes. And so we'll continue to work extremely closely in the context of those multilateral alliances. And I'll just say that over the course of the past year, especially, the Five Eyes partnership and alliance has been extremely important.
Okay, next question. Just for the sake of having, because I see we have many questions, but none of it is will be in French. So just for the sake of having a few comments in French, j'aurais une question pour vous, Madame Anand, Guy Bergeron de la presse canadienne. On sait qu'aujourd'hui, il y aura une enquête en comité parlementaire qui va commencer sur le recours à la firme McKinsey par le gouvernement. On a su dans les dernières semaines que votre ministère, le ministère de la Défense, est de ceux qui a souvent eu recours au conseil de cette firme-là, au service de cette firme-là. Vous ne faites pas partie des ministres que M. Trudeau a demandé de se pencher sur cette question-là. Êtes-vous prête à regarder si tout a été fait dans l'ordre du côté du ministère de la Défense? Et comment expliquez-vous que ça a été nécessaire aussi souvent là, de recourir à une firme externe plutôt que ce soit fait au sein même de la fonction publique?
Merci pour cette question. Et vous avez raison, c'est vrai, le Premier ministre a demandé à deux ministres d'examiner les contrats de cette entreprise. Mais aussi, je voudrais dire que c'est important pour moi, comme ministre, comme membre du cabinet, de s'assurer que toutes les choses sont opérées avec l'intégrité. Et ça, c'était le cas quand j'étais la ministre d'approvisionnement et c'est le cas aussi comme ministre de la Défense nationale. L'intégrité du contrat, c'est essentiel. Merci.
Merci. Je vais m'abstenir pour ma question de suivi. I won't have any follow-up just to make sure we have the most most people can have question answered. So next in line, Annie Bergeron-Oliver from CTV. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. Lee mentioned it, but Western allies are set to meet Friday at a U.S. airbase in Germany to talk about aid for Ukraine. I'm wondering, what do you intend to offer, or what will you be pushing for?
Thank you so much, Annie. I will be in attendance at that very important meeting on Friday. I came to Kyiv today in order to ensure that Ukraine knew of this purchase of 200 vehicles from Russia that we are donating to Ukraine, with the remainder of the $500 million that the Prime Minister announced in November. And on Friday, we will have, as allies, a full-fledged discussion of the capabilities that Ukraine wants and needs to fight and win this war. And in particular, the process that we will undergo will be quite involved. We will hear, I am sure, from each and every country about what they have already donated, and we will hear from Minister Resnikov in terms of what his needs are. And it's a process, and you have seen already that Canada, in response to this process and in response to my conversations with Minister Resnikov, has put on the table many items that he has asked for, NASAMS air defense system, for example, M777s, for example, artillery for the M777s, for example, Carl Gustav anti-tank weapon systems, for example, cameras for drones, for example, winter clothing, for example. All of those items are items that Minister Reznikov specifically asked me for and put on the table at the Defense Contact Group. I expect Friday's meeting to be similar in terms of process, and I look forward to having the discussion with Minister Reznikov and our allies at that time.
As my follow-up, there are those who fear sending Leopard 2 tanks to Ukraine could escalate the conflict further. Do you agree with that? And what is the downside to offering these tanks to Ukraine?
I believe that it is important for Canada to continue to do whatever we can to support Ukraine in the short and the long term. And that is the reason why I announced today that we are sending 200 armored vehicles to Ukraine from Russia. And these, in fact, were vehicles that Minister Reznikov asked us for. In terms of additional aid, such as the tanks, rest assured I will continue to be in touch with Minister Reznikov frequently, including at Friday's meeting of the Defense Contact Group, and Canada will do its best to respond to specific asks that are put on the table, as we always do. Thank you.
OK, prochaine question. On va y aller avec Olivier Ferron-Boissy qui vient de lever la main pour TVA. Je vois qu'il reste pas beaucoup de temps. I see we don't have much time left. So maybe, Minister Anand, if you can stay for maybe 2 questions, so that would allow for a French question and then an English question with follow-ups. I don't know if that is a possibility for you right now. Okay.
I can do 1 question, 1 follow-up. I have to catch a train.
OK. So, alors, Olivier, si c'est possible, je pense que le meilleur compromis, ce serait que tu aies une question en français. So I think the best compromise, considering Minister has to catch train, we'll go with 1 question in French and then 1 last question in English. So, without follow-up. So, Olivier Ferron-Boissy, tu peux y aller.
Oui, bonjour. Le compromis me convient. D'ailleurs, Émilie, merci. Simplement, en suivi à la question d'Annie, estimez-vous qu'il y a un risque d'escalade si on autorisait l'exportation de ces Léopard 2 comme l'Ukraine le demande? Est-ce que pour vous, c'est bel et bien un risque tangible et est-ce que c'est ce qui pourrait freiner justement qu'on ait de la vente?
Je voudrais dire que c'est important pour les alliés, les partenaires, de faire toutes les choses pour appuyer l'Ukraine. Ça veut dire l'aide militaire, ça veut dire l'aide létale et non létale. Donc, le Canada va fournir l'Ukraine avec l'équipement militaire dont l'Ukraine a besoin dans le court et le long terme. Ça, c'est la réalité pour notre pays et nous continuons de faire ça. Merci beaucoup.
Okay, and last question, Tandamic Charles, you can go ahead from the Toronto Star.
Thanks. Minister, did Minister Reznikov not ask you specifically for tanks today?
Minister Reznikov and I had a long and far-reaching discussion, and we discussed a number of items for military aid. And as is my practice, I will come forward to the Defense Contact Group with my colleagues around the table and have a discussion about what makes the most sense from an allied perspective. And I'm very much looking forward to our conversation as allies and partners around the table on Friday.
Okay, so this is all the time we got. So thanks for your time, Minister Anand, and thanks for everyone participating to this press conference. Have a good day.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci, bye-bye.